From the Fort Pitt Tunnel in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Toups Graphics presents an Algebra 1 tutorial video. Today we'll be going over inequalities. Inequality symbols are used to compare quantities. The less than symbol means the quantity on the left is smaller. Remember, in the less than symbol, the symbol points to the left. The greater than symbol means that the quantity on the left is larger. If your problem involves the quantities being less than or equal or greater than or equal, you will need to underline your inequality symbol. Let's start by going over some example problems. In algebra, you will often be asked to compare a linear quantity to an amount. Example 1. Bubba Bob has $50 to go to the fair. Parking costs $8 and ride tickets are $3 each. Write and solve an inequality to determine the number of possible ride tickets Bubba Bob can purchase. When making an inequality equation, make sure you start by putting the total amount on the right. In this problem, our total amount of money is $50. Your algebraic equation will usually be linear. Set up the equation using the growing number and starting number and put the equation on the left. In this problem, the parking is your starting number. You only pay it once, while the ride tickets would be your common difference or growing number. The common difference or growing number would be 3. Now that we have our equation in total, we need to figure out what inequality symbol we will need. Our equation of 3x plus 8 cannot exceed 50, but it can equal 50. So we'll use the less than or equal symbol. Now that we have our equation less than our total amount, we could solve for x, which will be the number of tickets that Bubba Bob could possibly purchase. You solve an inequality like you would an equation. The first thing we'll do is subtract 8 from both sides. After subtracting 8 from both sides, we now have 3x less than or equal to 42. To isolate the variable on the left, now we're going to divide the coefficient. We'll divide 3x and 42 by 3. If you divide 42 by 3, you would get 14. That means the number of tickets Bubba Bob can purchase, or x, has to be less than or equal to 14. Let's do another example problem together. Emma Sue is raising money for the school fundraiser. She must raise at least $400. She currently has $150 and she raises $5 for every ticket she sells. Write and solve an inequality that tells you the number of possible tickets Emma Sue must sell. Remember, the first thing we need to do is to put the total amount on the right. In this problem, our total amount would be the $400 Emma Sue needs to raise. Now we'll write our arithmetic sequence using the growing number and starting number. Remember to put your algebraic expression on the left. In this problem, our growing number and starting number are 5 and 150. She already has $150, so it's the starting number. And every ticket she sells will earn $5. That's going to be the common difference or growing number. So our algebraic expression would be 5x plus 150. Now that we have our algebraic expression and total amount, we need to figure out the inequality that we will place. Emma Sue must raise at least $400. That means the 5x plus 150 must be more than or equal to the $400. So we'll use a greater than or equal symbol. Now we need to solve the equation. To solve the equation, we need to subtract the 150 from both sides. We'll do 400 minus the 150. If you subtract 150 from 400, you get 250. Now our inequality states that 5x is greater than or equal to 250. Now we'll isolate the variable of x by dividing both sides by 5. If you divide 250 by 5, you get 50. That means the number of tickets Imasu must sell must be greater than or equal to 50. Now it's your turn. Make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil. Jimmy John is lifting weights. He can bench press 160 pounds. To impress Lucy Claire, he will put as many 5-pound weights on the 40-pound bar to work out. Write and solve an inequality to determine the number of 5-pound weights that Jimmy John can lift. To start off, write GX plus S on your paper and the total amount. Now then, you'll need to find the growing number, starting number, the total, and put your inequality between the two. Then, solve the inequality to find out how many 5-pound weights Jimmy John can work out with. Let's see how you did. The first thing you want to do is to find the total amount from the problem. In this problem, the total amount would be 160 pounds. Now that we have the total amount, let's find the growing number. The growing number would be equal to the 5-pound weights. The last thing we'll need to find is the starting number. Some problems won't have a starting number. In this problem, our starting number is the 40-pound bar. Now we need to find out what inequality we will need to put between the two quantities. Jimmy John can bench press 160 pounds, but not more than 160 pounds. So we'll need to use a less than or equal symbol. Now we need to solve the inequality. The first thing we'll do is subtract 40 from both sides. That gives us 5x less than or equal to 120. Now we'll divide both sides by 5. If you divide 120 by 5, you will get 24. That means Jimmy John can lift no more than 24 of the 5-pound weights. Now it's time for a commercial break. Today's lesson is sponsored by the domain and the range. The domain is equal to the x quantity in your function, and the range is equal to the y quantity in your function. The domain is also your input quantity, while the range is your output quantity. The domain is also called the independent quantity, while the range is the dependent quantity. The domain and the range. It gives a function more power. From behind the Worthing Theater in Houston, Texas, the inequality lesson continues. Let's do another problem. Make sure you have paper and pencil. Bubba Bob has $26 to go play putt-putt. He has to pay $2 to rent the putter, then he has to pay $4 for each game. Write an inequality to determine the amount of games Bubba Bob can play. On your paper, write down GX plus S, leave a space, and put total. Now you need to write down your total, your growing number, and starting number, put an inequality between the two quantities, and solve for x. Let's see how you did. The first thing we need to do is find the total amount, which would be the $26. Now we'll find the growing number. He has to pay $4 for each game, so that's your growing number. Now that we have our total amount and our growing number, we need to find the starting number. He has to pay $2 to rent the putter. That would be the starting number. Now we need to figure out what inequality we will put between our quantities. He can spend up to, but not more than, $26. So we'll use a less than or equal symbol. Now we'll solve our inequality. We need to first subtract 2 from both sides. 26 minus 2 is 24. Now we have 4x is less than or equal to 24. Now we need to divide by 4. If you divide 24 by 4, you'll get x less than or equal to 6. That means Bubba Bob can only pay for up to 6 games. Let's do one last word problem before we start something new. Bubba Bob has to take his little cousin trick-or-treating. He can't come home until his cousin's bucket weighs at least 80 ounces. If the bucket weighs 8 ounces and each piece of candy averages about 6/10 of an ounce, write an inequality that finds the minimum number of pieces of candy that they must collect before they can come home. Let's see if you remember what to do. Write down gx plus s and your total. You need to look through the problem, find the total amount, the growing number, and starting number, put an inequality between the two quantities, and then solve for x, the number of pieces of candy that they must collect. Let's see how you did. The first thing you need to do is look for the total amount. The total amount would be the 80 ounces of candy they must collect. Now that you know that the total amount is 80 ounces, look for the growing number. The growing number would be the amount each candy weighs, or 6/10 of an ounce. Now you know that the total is 80 and the growing number is 6/10. Find the starting number. His bucket weighs 8 ounces, so that's the starting number. Now we need to find the inequality we'll put between the two quantities. The Halloween bucket needs to weigh at least 80 ounces with the candy. That means you'll need a greater than or equal symbol. Now we'll solve our inequality. The first thing we'll do is subtract 8 from both sides. 80 minus 8 would be 72. That means we'll have 6/10 x greater than or equal to 72. Now we'll divide both quantities by 6/10. If you divide 72 by 6/10, you're going to get 120. That means Bubba Bob and his cousin must get at least 120 pieces of candy before they come home. Time for another commercial break. Pentagon T announces a new cell phone app. It will show you how to find the area of geometric figures. It will show you how scale factors dilate shapes. It will give you the common Pythagorean triples. It will also give you the common fraction decimal percent conversions. The Pentagon T cell phone app. It will help you always believe. Now let's look how to solve simple inequalities. Before we start solving inequalities, let's look at some properties. Let's take the inequality 8 greater than 5. Let's multiply the 8 and the 5 by -2. The product of 8 and -2 and 5 and -2 will be -16 and -10. 8 is indeed larger than 5, but the products are false. -16 is not larger than -10. To make this inequality true, we need to flip the inequality. Now we have -16 is less than -10, which is a true statement. So when you multiply by a negative, your inequality must flip. Let's look at another inequality. Let's take 6 less than 15. Now let's divide 6 and 15 by negative 3. The quotient of 6 and negative 3 is negative 2, while the quotient of 15 and negative 3 would be negative 5. That would give us an inequality of negative 2 less than negative 5, but that inequality is also false. To make the inequality of negative 2 less than negative 5 true, we need to flip the inequality. That means negative 2 would be greater than negative 5, which is a true statement. In summary, when you solve inequalities that involve negative coefficients or negative fractional quantities, you need to flip the inequality when you divide or multiply. Now it's your turn. Let's solve some inequalities. Make sure you have a paper and pencil. Now we're going to solve an inequality problem on your own. Write down on your paper 7 minus 2x is greater than 15. You'll have time to complete the problem. Let's solve the first problem. Remember, the first step is to move the constants to the right, so we'll subtract 7 from both sides. The combination of 15 and negative 7 would be 8, so now our inequality would be negative 2x greater than 8. To isolate the variable of x, now we need to divide by negative 2. If you divide 8 by negative 2, you would get negative 4. But remember, when you divide by a negative, you'll have to flip the inequality. That would give us a final answer of x less than negative 4. That was a blast. Now let's do another problem. Let's do 19 plus 3x is less than 7. Let's see how you did. The first thing would be to move the constant to the right. You'll do this by subtracting negative 19. The combination of 7 and negative 19 is negative 12. That leaves us with 3x less than negative 12. Now we'll divide both sides by 3, which is the coefficient. The quotient of negative 12 and 3 would be negative 4. What a coincidence! Our answer is x less than negative 4. Since we divided by a positive coefficient, we don't need to flip the inequality. Now it's time for a word from our sponsors. Today's video is sponsored by the LCM. Did you know that if you have an equation or inequality with fractions, you could use the LCM to simplify the problem? Let's take the problem 3x over 4 plus 2/3 is less than 5 over 6. We can simplify this by getting rid of the denominators of 4, 3, and 6. Let's find the LCM of 4, 3, and 6. If you were to write the multiples of 3, 4, and 6 out, you would find that 12 would be the smallest common multiple, or the LCM. Since 12 is the LCM, 4, 3, and 6 are all divisible by 12. Now let's distribute 12 to each of the terms in the inequality. Now that we distributed 12 to each term, we'll divide the denominators into 12. This will eliminate the denominators. 4 would divide into 12 3 times. 3 would go into 12 4 times. And 6 would go into 12 2 times. Now that the denominators have been eliminated, multiply the remaining quantities on top. 3 times 3x would be 9x. If you multiply 4 times 2, you would get a positive 8. And 2 times 5 would be 10. Now we have the inequality 9x plus 8 is less than or equal to 10. To solve our inequality, we need to move the constants to the right. So we'll subtract 8 over to the 10. The combination of 10 and negative 8 would be 2. The last step would be to divide the coefficient of 9. 2 does not divide by 9, so our answer will be a fractional quantity. Our final answer would be the quantity of x must be less than or equal to 2/9. You got this problem by using the LCM of 12 to eliminate the denominators of 4, 3, and 6. The LCM. It will help you solve equations and inequalities. From the University of Texas Health Science Center, Fountains, in Houston, Texas, the inequality lesson continues. Let's see if you can solve the inequality of 2/3 x minus 1/2 is greater than or equal to 7. Remember to use the LCM to get rid of your denominators. The first thing you need to do is get the common denominator, or LCM, of 2 and 3, which is 6. We'll put 6 on top of the 2, 1, and 7. All of the quantities need the 6 distributed to it. Now we'll divide the denominators of 3 and 2 into 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. This eliminates our denominators. Now we'll multiply the quantities on top. 2 times 2x is 4x, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, and 6 times 7 is 42. That gives our inequality now 4x minus 3 greater than or equal to 42. Now we need to move the negative 3 to the right. We'll add 3 to both sides. 42 plus 3 is 45. So our equation now would be 4x greater than or equal to 45. Now we need to divide by the coefficient of 4. 4 won't divide into 45 evenly. So our answer could remain as x greater than or equal to 45 over 4, or as a decimal, x is greater than or equal to 11 and 25/100ths. Let's do one more problem. Let's see if you can solve negative 2 over 3x less than 8. This fractional problem is a little easier because it only has one denominator. The first step is to distribute the denominator to the negative 2 and the 8. The 3's on the left would divide out to 1, and you need to multiply 3 times 8. You would be left with negative 2x less than 24. The next step would be to divide the coefficient of negative 2. If you divide 24 by negative 2, you would get negative 12. But remember, since we divided by a negative, our inequality is going to flip. Our final answer will be x greater than negative 12. Time for a commercial break.
Aren't these Pythagorean triple meal deals great? I'm going to get the 3, 4, 5 meal deal. For $5, you get 4 tacos and 3 Frito chili cheese wraps. What a great deal!
That is a good deal, Dad. But I think I'm getting to get the 5, 12, 13 meal for $5. And you get a 12-inch hot dog and 13 tater tots.
Wow, what a cool deal!
I know.
You know what I'm going to think of it? I'm going to live life on the edge. I'm going to supersize my 3, 4, 5 meal deal with a scale factor of 2 and make it a 6, 8, 10 meal deal. For $10, I'm going to get 8 tacos and 6 frito chili cheese wraps.
That's a lot of food.
Don't worry about that. I'm a manly man type of guy. It's so cool supersizing your Pythagorean triple meal deal with a scale factor. You know, you take a girl down here, use a coupon with your order, and show her how to use the scale factor. Talk about being a babe magnet.
The Pythagorean triple meal deals. Only at Sonic. In review, let's go over what we just learned. Inequalities are symbols used to compare quantities. If the quantity on the left is smaller, you'll use the less than symbol. If the quantity on the left is larger, you'll use the greater than symbol. If the quantities can be equal to each other, you'll also underline your inequality symbol, having a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to. In algebra, you will often be asked to compare a linear expression to a total amount using an inequality symbol. And lastly, when solving an inequality, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip your inequality. This video has been produced by Pentagon T. Do you need to believe? You need Pentagon T. Make sure you search Jerry Toups at YouTube for more educational videos. Pentagon T. Always believe.